Ever heard of those rulers who are so dictatorial that they don't care what their subjects' needs or wants are? They become greedy for power and will do anything to be the most powerful people in that country. Well, that is the type of leader Nefertiti, the sole female pharaoh in ancient Egypt, was, so who wouldn't hate her? In this video, I'll be giving you a well-detailed history of why Nefertiti was the most hated female pharaoh in ancient Egyptian history, so watch till the end. Now, let's uncover some interesting facts about the most hated female pharaoh in ancient Egyptian history and the reasons behind all that hatred. Welcome to Untold History Guy, where you can find fun, fascinating, and sometimes shocking chronicles of history. Join us as we journey back and uncover the untold truths of the past. Nefertiti's origin. Sometimes death is a blessing to us because it's through death that the people of ancient Egypt got to avenge the many years of cruelty under the reign of their evil queen Nefertiti. These people had had too much, and after her death, they wiped out her history from the ancient documents of Egypt. So today, we don't know her exact year of birth, but it is said to be around 1370 BC. Also, her parents are a mystery, and we have to learn about a few theories about her parentage, which are also not confirmed to be true. Well, no one wants to be associated with a person hated this much because it could cause your death. So let's uncover the theories of the wicked Nefertiti's parentage. One theory is that she's the daughter of Ai, who was a top advisor in the empire and later became pharaoh succeeding Tutankhamun's sovereignty. However, Ai and his wife Tay have never been cleared to be her parents because if the people knew that Ai was Nefertiti's father, he would probably not be their pharaoh. The only documented relationship Tay had with Nefertiti is that Tay was the nurse of Nefertiti. How heartless was this woman to make her mother her nurse? It's very unusual for the mother of an Egyptian queen to be documented as the queen's nurse. Another theory implies that she was the daughter of Amenhotep III, which makes her a sister to her husband Amenhotep IV. Wow, talk about an abomination. But this could just be speculation for people to tarnish her name more because she never held a title given to the daughter of a pharaoh. Therefore, the origin of this evil queen is still unknown. The beginning of Egyptians' hate towards Nefertiti. Nefertiti was not always hated, or maybe she was, and we don't know because we don't know her childhood life. Her detestation story began after her encounter with Akhenaten, her husband, the pharaoh. They were said to have gotten married when she was 15 years old, a couple of years before her husband became Amenhotep IV. Their love story is like that of a fairy tale, though evil fairies, because they shared a very close and intimate relationship besides the fact the pharaoh had multiple wives. It could be because they had the same interest, which is power, and she was the great loyal wife the pharaoh had. She bore him 6 daughters but no sons. Maybe it's because even the universe didn't want their generation to rule Egypt again, that these two didn't have an heir together. However, this did not break the relationship Nefertiti had with the pharaoh. We could say they had an ionic bond. The reason why Nefertiti is the most hated female pharaoh in ancient Egyptian history. People just don't wake up one day and decide to hate you, especially if you're their ruler. Nefertiti must have done something to her subjects for her to be said to be the most hated female pharaoh in ancient history. So, what did she do? Nefertiti supported all of Pharaoh's decisions without considering whether they inconvenienced her subject. All the decisions that the pharaoh made were to make him and Nefertiti powerful, and they were so cruel that they would do anything to get the power. She was always his right-hand man, or woman in this case. Let's look at the decisions they made together. Forcing Egyptians to abandon the worship of their traditional gods and start worshipping Aten. Ever heard of the phrase, jealousy can make you do crazy things? Maybe not, because I just made it up. But that was the case with Nefertiti and the pharaoh. During the 14th century BC, the profane pharaoh Akhenaten and Nefertiti decided to strip the high priests of Amun of their cultural influence. You may think that the high priest had committed some sort of crime for this decision to be made, but it was all because the pharaoh was concerned by how much socio-political sway they had over the Egyptian populace, and became jealous of them, which was insane. After all, the high priests were not interested in taking the throne. To deny the priest's influence on the people, Pharaoh and his Nefertiti invented monotheism, where they developed the cult of Atenism. Nefertiti joined arms with her husband to force the people of Egypt to abandon their traditional gods and start worshipping a single god named Aten, hence Nefertiti's title, High Priestess of Aten. If you don't know what Aten is, let me enlighten you. Aten is believed to be the disk of the sun. It was originally an aspect of the sun god known as Ra. Artistically, Aten is portrayed as a solar disk that is emitting rays of sun with hands at the ends that are touching the royal family. The worship of Aten was not new in Egypt since the people had been worshipping it for a long time, and even during the reign of Amenhotep III and Queen Tai. Therefore, the people were not against it since they took Aten as one of their gods. However, the extent to which Akhenaten and Nefertiti went to force the Egyptians to worship this god is what made the people mad. Truly, the jealousy in them had consumed them to an extent of wiping away anything that stood in the way of their search for power. They declared that not only was Aten the supreme god of Egypt, but to make things worse, they decided to order all the temples of Amun to be destroyed and any image containing any other god other than Aten to be banned. However, even after gaining power, their greed demanded more, and even ended up announcing that they were the only messengers of Aten, replacing all religious leaders. They became untouchable, making the high priests fear for their lives as they had to hide. Their subjects got worried since they viewed all these rules towards monotheism as a threat to the empire and to them. However, Akhenaten and Nefertiti didn't care what the people thought, and towards the end of Akhenaten's reign, he declared himself and his great loyal wife as gods and demanded they be worshipped. Instead of Nefertiti opposing the acts of the pharaoh, since she was the only person close to him, she supported him, not caring about the feelings of her subjects or successors. Due to the support that Nefertiti gave the pharaoh, she got greater influence over the empire than any other Egyptian queen to have existed. Eventually, she was elevated to the position of a co-pharaoh alongside her husband Akhenaten. However, the Egyptians did not support or like their rule, which led to their hatred towards Nefertiti and the pharaoh. This is the biggest reason why people hated her. Changing the administrative center of Egypt. Their acts of greed didn't stop there. The pharaoh also changed the administrative center from the capital of Thebes. The pharaoh was obsessed with ruining the high priest because it's believed that he did this to spite them. Even though Nefertiti knew this, she still supported him in his acts. The pharaoh knew that the high priest's base of operations was the temple of Karnak, which was located in the capital of Thebes. Therefore, to deny the high priests the means of exercising their political machinations, Akhenaten, alongside Nefertiti, changed the capital of Egypt from Thebes to an underdeveloped random plot of land in the middle of the Egyptian desert and named it Akhenaten. Even though the high priests were afraid of Akhenaten and Nefertiti's wrath, they had been pushed into a corner by this action, so they decided to fight back. Well, they knew they couldn't win through a physical fight and decided to fight by manipulating and encouraging the people to hate and be in conflict with the rule of their pharaoh and Nefertiti. Since they were also influential people in the empire, they used every ounce of their leadership to turn the Egyptian masses against their pharaoh and his wife Nefertiti. Therefore, by the asset of being linked with Akhenaten, Nefertiti's reputation was tarnished. Fortunately for the Egyptians, Amenhotep IV died, leaving his wife, which meant that she was supposed to hand the throne to her 9-year-old stepson since she didn't have any heirs. Refusing to hand the throne to her stepson so she can reign as a sole pharaoh. Having thought that they could now be happy since the reign of oppression had come to an end, the Egyptians were surprised when Nefertiti succeeded Amenhotep IV. She became the sole female pharaoh and even changed her name to Neferuaten, meaning beautiful is the beauty of Aten. It's believed that she posed as a male pharaoh called Smenkhare as well. This woman was ready to do anything to remain in power. Being a female pharaoh, she gained more power, which made her hesitant to relinquish the throne to her stepson Tutankhamun. She became desperate to keep the throne and went as far as to write to the king of Hittites, Suppiluliuma I, that she wanted him to offer her his son to be her husband, since she would not want to take one of her subjects as her husband. Well, pride comes before a fall. This was an extremely desperate proposition because Egyptian royal women are never to marry a foreigner. As for Suppiluliuma, he was impressed because it meant expanding his territories and responded by sending his son Prince Zananza. The attempt to marry a foreigner was viewed as treason by the Egyptians, and hearing that their female pharaoh was about to do it did not make them happy. Therefore, the prince was assassinated on his way to Egypt, and the marriage didn't take place. Shortly afterwards, Nefertiti disappeared and is believed to have been murdered. However, since history didn't record it, it remains a mystery whether she died at the time she disappeared or decided to hand her throne to her successor Tutankhamun, though according to what we know about her, she would have had to be murdered to surrender her throne. Well, hate can also make people do crazy things, because after the death of Nefertiti and Akhenaten, their names were removed from the ancient Egyptian king list, and all their projects were destroyed. Thank goodness they didn't decide to wipe off her whole generation by killing her daughter and anyone else related to her. So, tell us what you think about the evil queen of ancient Egypt in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out some of the other historical stories that are just as interesting as this one.